Hello, I'm Scott Rayleigh of Rayleigh Farm and Field, and we want to welcome you to our website. Many of you have bought corn from us, and a lot of you have seen this old Farmall 140 in action planting corn. We get a lot of emails and replies, phone calls from you. But we're not going to be talking about planting corn with a Farmall today. We're going to talk about something very serious. I think it's very important to every American that believes in taking care of their family. I mean, when in American history have you ever heard that you can't, our young moms can't find baby food? And you can't even buy Purina dog food, and other foods in some of the grocery stores are completely out. I don't ever remember this. And I just have a feeling that we all better be learning how to garden and feed our families. And I have more phone calls and more emails from people that say, Scott, what do you plant to feed a family? We know you plant a lot of corn and you sell corn, but what do we plant to feed our families? And a lot of young people tell me, they call and they say, well, we plant a lot of lettuce and a lot of herbs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let me tell you, if you hit hard times, if the nation really fell on hard times, you're going to starve to death on lettuce and herbs. What we're going to talk about today is raising a garden like this garden out here. This has been a garden probably since the late 1890s. This is where I think it's 65 feet wide, 75 feet long. And we raise enough food in here, not only for our family, but 2 or 3 other families. But if we just planted lettuce and herbs and 1 or 2 other items, we couldn't feed ourselves. So the question, if you're going to feed your family and survive hard times, what do you plant? I believe that there are 7 seeds that you have to have. You have to have for your family to survive hard times. 7 seeds. So come along with us. We're going to talk about these 7 seeds, and then we're going to do another video called The Farmer's Garden. How you plant a garden, how you start it off, how wide you put your rows, how much fertilizer you lay in the rows. And yes, you can, if you've got a Farmall or a Cub, you can plant these gardens with this. I have planted this garden before with the Farmall 140. But here's what, for a smaller garden, this is what you're going to want to use. Now, we're going to talk about planters in a farmer's garden, but this is an old coal planter. They still make this planter. You can still buy coal. They're over $1,000, probably around $1,100. But we're going to talk about that in the next video. So come along with us, and right now we're going to talk about 7 seeds that'll save your family. So what are these 7 seeds that will save your family in rough times? Number 1 is corn. Now, before I get into all 7, I want to tell you about the 3 sisters. For over 1,000 years, Wesley, you're going to have to sit down some. For over 1,000 years, Native Americans in our nation have raised something called the 3 sisters. And what the 3 sisters are is corn, beans, and squash. And they work together because the corn grows up, the beans, they're pole beans, they'll climb the corn, and beans are a legume. And legumes put nitrogen, they fix nitrogen out of the air, and they fix nitrogen back through the root system into the soil, and it produces nitrogen. Peas, beans are legumes, clovers are legumes. So the Indians had it figured out. They would put some fish under the ground, or byproducts of animals they'd cleaned, and that was their fertilizer. They'd plant corn, and they'd plant pole beans, and the beans would climb the corn. And then later they would plant a summer squash, or mainly a fall squash, because it's a running squash. And what that squash would do, it would shade the ground, and it'd keep moisture in the ground. And also it kept weeds from coming up. So it was a pretty ingenious mix called the 3 sisters. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to improve upon that. And so the first seed that you need to save your family is corn. Now, most people in gardens, they plant sweet corn. Kathy, if you come up here and let them get a good look at this. This is sweet corn, and you see it's treated, and it's a lot of people like to eat sweet corn, but here's the problem: you can plant it one time. You can't save your seed. So if you're gonna start raising corn to feed your family and save your family, you need to go to an heirloom corn. And I want to show you what we sell probably more than anything. This is Hastings Prolific. Now this is from last year's crop. This is a beautiful, beautiful ear of corn, and you can literally feed your family with this Hastings. It's drought resistant. Now it grows to be about 13, 14 feet long. You can't have that, no. Here is Jimmy Red. Here's some different ear sizes of Jimmy Red, and you know, we sell a lot of Jimmy Red. Now you may ask, well, why do you have a smaller ear? Well, it probably had a little less nitrogen that got to that plant, and it had a smaller ear. And here is some Glass Gem. It's a neat little Indian corn, a beautiful little, more of an ornamental corn, but you can save this seed. And here's Lohman Yellow Field Corn. Lohman is designed, it's an old corn out of Irmo, South Carolina. Dr. Kiesler and his family gave it to me at Kiesler Mill. But this is strictly for milling, for cornmeal and grits, yellow cornmeal and yellow grits. And it's an heirloom. So you want an heirloom corn. The second seed that you need is peas. And of course we're going to get into the beans and everything, but these peas, these are heirloom peas. This is pink eye purple hull pea, and this is a pea that a friend of mine gave us. It's called Wash Lady Field Pea, Crowder pea. So you want peas. You can, as long as you keep picking peas, most of them will keep producing some of the heirloom varieties, and so you want peas. I can't think of a Southerner's plate that doesn't have peas on it at night. And here's another thing that you have to have. So number 2 is peas. Number 3, and I should have listed it as number 2, but these are rattlesnake pole beans. And if you want to feed your family, you've got to have pole beans. You can build you a trellis, or you can let it climb up the corn. Most people have some kind of trellis system, but as long as you keep picking these beans when they're ready to pick, they'll keep producing for a long time. Rattlesnake beans, if you're south of the Mason-Dixon line, rattlesnake bean is hard to beat. And I want to tell you this, to a lot of our customers that are north of the Mason-Dixon line, you just need to find out what grows indigenous to your area. You'll have a different variety of peas than people in the south may plant. You may have a different variety of beans and corn. Probably a Jimmy Red will work great in your area as far as a corn, but you may want to look at Bloody Butcher. But so you want corn, you want pole beans, and you want peas. Well, let me tell you what else you want to have. This is okra. This variety, this plant will produce more food for your family than just about anything you can plant. Very popular in the south, but there are very great varieties in the north, mainly dwarf varieties of okra that do well in the north. But this is another one, kind of like pole beans. If you quit picking this, it'll quit producing. So as long as you pick this okra, it'll provide for your family for a long time. So we've talked about corn. We've talked about pole beans. And the reason I like pole beans over bush beans is they can climb up, and you can use either your corn plants or a trellis. We've talked about beans. We've talked about okra. There's 3 more that I want to finish with. There's one vegetable you have to plant to feed your family because it's a heavy producer, and that's squash. We plant a lot of crookneck yellow squash, but you need to have squash on your list, and you can even include fall or winter squash like acorn squash, butternut squash, but we plant a lot of straight neck and crookneck yellow squash. And the 6th is tomatoes. You've got to have tomatoes. Again, tomatoes, if you take care of them, use a lot of calcium nitrate on them. Don't get too heavy on the ammonium nitrate. They like calcium, but you use calcium nitrate. Keep plenty of water to them, and they'll produce for a long time. So I would recommend an heirloom tomato like Cherokee Purple or Atkinson, but just whatever's kind of indigenous to your area, you need tomatoes. And then last, I put down here watermelons. Now, in Alabama, probably one of the most popular melon seeds. You can't, it's hard to, almost impossible to find. You have to buy it from locals. But it's yellow meat, Wesley. It's yellow meated watermelon, Clay County yellow meated watermelon, but you can use any watermelon. And you know, watermelon is something that's great for the kids. I think everyone loves it. It's a summer thing that everybody seems to enjoy around 4th of July and past that. So those are, I think, the 7 seeds that can save your family. But let me tell you, they're not the only seeds. Some people will disagree with me. Like, we didn't talk about slips, potato slips. We didn't talk about red potatoes, sweet potatoes. I think those are a must. But what we were talking about here were seed. I believe that we better be saving seed, and we better learn how to garden. I think tough times could be headed our way. I'm an optimist. I'll look at the glass half full, but you better learn how to raise a garden. Now, what we're fixing to do, we're going to have another video that'll come out later in the week. It's going to be called The Farmer's Garden, and we're going to talk about how you garden. So God bless you, and thank you for being with Raley Farm and Field.